The whole Liam Kumar Day effect, not really happened.
Nigel couldn't make it.
Yeah.
I've rang up Mendenhall, he said he could make
Don't
it.
dig this hole. Phil, credit to the guy, he always manages to do well what he has, but he is a shocking person right now. You guys got a trophy? No.
It was pre-bit.
No, my life from Rashad Mendenhall.
Right, you guys, hands up. I'm a tag, Jack! I'm a fucking tag!
So, congratulations if you're listening to this episode of the LOC Report, because week 2 of the NFL and in the LOC was an absolute bloodbath, so congratulations if you're still here. But it wasn't a train wreck for everyone, as I'm joined by someone who did very well last week, Team Ambassador, Coach Sherwood of Icnan. How's it going, Coach?
Hype. Yeah, it's going pretty good. Yeah, I'm pretty happy, so I thought I'd come on to
great. Yeah, absolutely.
humbly gloat.
Definitely. Very good week for you. We'll get to all that in a second. You were probably the lone exception who had a very good week last week. And we'll start off with the league news, where there is a behemoth of injuries. So let's get right to it. The league news. So, let's start off with my team to begin with. So, no less than both of my starting running backs got injured last week. Lamar Miller sprained or tweaked his ankle or something. Apparently not too serious. He even considered coming back in the game, so he should be back this weekend. We got a lot to get through, so I'm going to do a quick fire and then some quick fire reaction from you. How's that sound?
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, okay, so we'll skip over that one. Eddie Lacy sprained, he was carted off with an ankle injury in Sunday Night Football, but he could even suit up Monday.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, definitely. Deshaun Jackson not going to play this week, Thursday night game, still recovering from that hamstring. Highly questionable for week 4. And I think that was it for my team. Detonators now, let's see, I think they escaped. Probably the biggest thing that impacted them was the Tony Romo injury, which we'll get to in a bit. It's going to knock down Terrence Williams a bit. Other than that, they look A-OK. Let's go on to ADRZ next. And Jason Witten, he had 3 sprains, no less. I believe he sprained both ankles and a knee. Highly questionable, to say the least, for Sunday.
Yeah. Bloody hell.
That generally happens when you sprain everything in your body. Victor Cruz is resumed running on grass, but don't count on him for this week either. Still having that calf injury, which was linked to his patella injury. Tom's Tyrants, Chris Ivory rebounded well from the Monday night game. Apparently he was questionable going in. Very sore, but he should, touch wood, be okay for Sunday. Who else on your team? I guess Tevin Coleman. Yep, Tevin Coleman. He went off with a rib injury. I think the report said broken ribs. I think they said he could still play with it, but I think he's kind of week to week right now. Wouldn't expect him this weekend. Let's go on to Forward Flyers. Forward Flyers, I think they were okay. Yep, they were fine. The Dream Team, Drew Brees, there have been varying reports. He was injured on the weekend. Something to do with his rotator cuff. The initial reports were he'd miss a few weeks. Then another report said it was only a bruise on his rotator cuff and that he could even suit up this weekend with comprehensive rehab, but it's murky at best, I would say. I think Devontae Adams tweaked his ankle as well, but it was nothing serious, so he should be fine for Sunday. Clean bill. Other than that, your team, Mr. Sherwood, I think you escaped the injury bug this weekend. A little bit on Aaron Foster, though. He should be back possibly as soon as this week, so that's good news for you. Andre Ellington, I think he's expected to miss 1 more week before returning in week 4 as well.
Yeah.
Moving on to bare necessities, I think they have a clean bill of health. They do indeed, yep. So let's go on to the Romosexuals, who, as the name suggests, their starting quarterback, Tony Romo, as I alluded to a second ago, he's got a broken clavicle. He's been placed on IR return, so he will miss I think around the next 8 weeks. He'll probably return just after Thanksgiving, early December kind of time. Carlos Hyde was also injured in this game. He suffered a concussion, and then after the game, it was revealed he also had a leg bruise or some variety. So I'd say questionable for this weekend at the moment. I think other than that, they were fine too. Yeah. So Jeff Seals, Matthew Stafford, I think he's had a continuation of his week 1 injuries, or he's been further nicked up anyway. Initially it was an arm. I think he's hurt his ribs now. He's going to be one to monitor. It's going to be about pain management, I think, and whether or not the ribs are stable. Again, questionable for this weekend. Alshon Jeffrey also missed Sunday with a hamstring injury that cropped up in Thursday's practice. Again, I'd say questionable for this weekend, but a better chance of suiting up for week 3. Moving on to the Tuck Fards, I think they were fine. T.Y. Hilton did eventually play in the Monday night game. I think he was a little bit limited, but he wasn't out there and just a decoy. So continued to monitor his status. He's probably going to get a questionable tag again on that knee, but I imagine he'll play. And that's it for them. Finally, Pakistan. Randall Cobb continuing to cope with that shoulder, but his status won't be in doubt for the weekend. And Eric Decker suffered a PCL injury of some sort. I think it was a mild sprain, highly questionable for week 3, but he's considered day-to-day. So that's all the injuries. Compared to week 1, an absolute bloodbath, I think we can agree.
Agreed.
But, it happens. It's part of fantasy, so that's what it is. We'll go to the transactions quickly now, and there's a few here that I'm sure will raise a few eyebrows, and I'll let you talk about that. And we're going to lead off right here with probably the biggest one. The Tuckfards added Travis Benjamin and dropped Andre Johnson. What do you make of that?
I don't even know who Travis Benjamin is. I'm presuming he's a rookie or something?
So he's the Cleveland Browns wide receiver. He's not a rookie. He's also the kick returner. He's not. I don't believe he's number 1 on the depth chart, but they're so thin there he might well be. He's kind of the situational deep threat player. Through the first 2 weeks of the season, I believe he scored 3 long bomb touchdowns and a return touchdown, prompting 45 points. Obviously, that does not sound very sustainable.
No.
But the thing I was keying in here more is that he gave up on Andre Johnson to add him. Your thoughts on that?
Well, it sounds like Phil, doesn't it? I'm sure he'll go down with an injury next week or something. Whoever wants him on the waiver wire should be careful. But I don't know. To be honest, it's a bit of a U move. It's one of those ones where there's a lot of potential for upside. We've seen this guy do well for the last couple of weeks, so it's like, okay, we'll jump on that because he's got a lot of potential.
Yeah, sure.
But frankly, he's not gonna. I mean, how many kick returns could he get? Like, how many like Hail Mary style plays are you gonna?
I mean, exactly. Johnny Manziel threw 15 passes last week, completed 8. 2 of those completions were 2 bomb touchdowns to Travis Benjamin. If that's not unsustainable, I don't know what is. So.
Yeah, exactly. And I always go for consistency over.
Absolutely. And Andre Johnson has not been great by any means of the word in the first 2 weeks, but in the offense he's in against the defenses he's played, I think you got to give him 2 more weeks or whatever, just to it's too soon to give up on him. Anyway, moving on. Bernard Sestes added Marvin Jones and dropped Ruben Randall, a shuffling of the number 2/3 wide receivers there. The Dream Team added Carson Palmer and dropped Christine Michael. Obviously, in the wake of the Drew Brees injury, they had to scramble for depth, and Carson Palmer coming off a very strong first 2 weeks. What do you make of this move?
Yeah, I think that's a good move. You got to make sure you've got some kind of alternative. So, yeah, I mean, strong choice.
Absolutely. Gridiron Gang added James Starks, logical handcuff move there for Eddie Lacy. The Roman Sections added Darren McFadden and dropped Terrence West. ADRZ added Cincinnati Bengals defense and dropped the Miami Dolphins defense. The Tuckfards added Dexter McCluster and dropped Richard Rodgers. Another head scratcher here. Do you want to talk about this one?
No, you can leave with that one.
Okay. Because you probably don't know who either of them are, right?
Nope, not a clue.
So Richard Rodgers starting tight end for the Green Bay Packers. He's had I'd say, solid first 2 weeks. You know, whenever you're in an Aaron Rodgers Green Bay offense, you know he's going to spread the love. He got a touchdown last week, only 23 and 27 yards through the first 2 weeks, so not anything spectacular, but...
No, he's got 11 rushing yards as well first week.
Yeah, I just saw that. That was interesting, wasn't it? I wouldn't count on that either. But no. I think he's more valuable, although saying that the Hogfarts did have 3 tight ends, so maybe not. Dexter McCluster, he got 8 yards in the first week. And fair play, he got 98 yards rushing and 26 receiving last week. That 98 came on 10 carries. But, you know, he's the change of base back in a Tennessee offense that isn't great in the first place, plus is divvying up the carries between the likes of Bishop Sankey and Terrence West as well. It's just, I know this team needs running back depth, but it's just a head scratcher.
Yeah.
Anyway, Gridiron Gang added Jordan Reed. They did not have a tight end on the roster going into waivers, so if you want to talk about Jordan Reed?
Let's have a look. He's done quite well the last couple of weeks. But who's he play for? Yeah, Redskins. I'm not. For some reason, I'm really prejudiced against the Redskins. I never think good things about them, and I don't know why. But anyway, he's more consistent than anyone else we've looked at so far. So, in terms of putting up good scores both weeks, but if you haven't got a tight end, then not bad choice, is it?
That was my plan all season. Stream a tight end if I find a good one.
yeah, exactly.
ADRZ added Josh Brown and dropped Randy Bullock. Obviously, Randy Bullock was the auto draft pick for him. Has not really done great through the first 2 weeks, so he gets cut. Gridiron Gang added Crockett Gilmore, another tight end coming off a good game. He could be the second/third option in the pass offense for Baltimore. Gridiron Gang also added New York Jets and dropped the Baltimore Ravens defense. Finally, fresh off the press, 8 minutes ago no less, the Rome Sexuals added quarterback Joe Flacco, dropped wide receiver Brashard Perriman. Want to talk about that one?
It's interesting. What are they lacking in?
Tony Romo just got injured, so they needed a quarterback.
Do they not have anyone else? Oh, okay. Well, not a bad choice. I don't know what's left. I mean, that's the problem.
Yeah,
I don't know what the alternatives are, but yeah.
So on the waiver right now, I mean, Carson Palmer got added. I know he was going in for him.
Yeah.
There's Andy Dalton's the best available, I'd say, followed by Tyrod Taylor, but he's a hard one to trust. Then you've got Colin Kaepernick, who he's looked alright through the first 2 weeks. Yeah. And then it's the likes of Jameis Winston, Blake Bortles, Ryan Fitzpatrick. So
yeah, I think he's probably done best out of that then.
Yeah,
Carson Palmer would have obviously been ideal.
Oh yeah, he was. Yeah, absolutely. So that wraps up the transactions. Excuse me. Just some team news now. So Jeff Seals will be getting a boost again this week. They'll be able to reactivate Le'Veon Bell. He's off suspension now, so he'll probably slide straight into the starting lineup. How big is that for Jeff Seals?
No, it's brilliant. What's he got going on? Yeah, he hasn't. Yeah, his running backs at the moment aren't fantastic. So that'll be a real boost. Absolutely. And I'm guessing next week he's going to put Aaron Rodgers back in.
Probably.
Because Matt Stafford's fucked. And even if he wasn't, you'd probably put Aaron Rodgers back in anyway. So I would say that's going to be a really, really strong week for him. Sure. Do you think he's going to take out Bishop Sankey or Matt Gordon? Or do you think he's going to switch out Aaron Cooper for...
Let's see. I think he'll probably kick Amari Cooper into... Actually, I don't know, because he's got Alshon Jeffrey who missed, so Alshon Jeffrey would obviously slide back into the starting receiver lineup. I think you probably pull out Bishop Sankey. Melvin Gordon's had a promising week last week, actually, and with Tennessee, you never know what they're going to do, so you can never rely on Bishop Sankey. So, I think he'll probably slide into the starting lineup for him. And we'll come to it in a bit, but they've had a very good first 2 weeks, so this could actually shore up a team that's already looking quite promising.
Yeah.
But that brings to the end of the league news. So now we will get to the week 2 recap. So there were some really good games last week, and we'll get to what ended up being the game of the week. And we said last week was probably the second best game of the week. Padastam v the Tugfards. I can't remember the exact name of the bowl game that was given to this, but it was something about their road. As they used to live in the same house, I think, no less.
Yeah, Locksmith Park Road bowl or something.
Okay, right, sure.
But they underground.
Yeah, absolutely. So this was it's probably one of the fiercest rivalries, if not in the NFL. Both of these coaches, LOC, sorry, both these coaches vehemently wanted to win. Only one could, obviously, and it was an absolute barnstormer. The Tugfards are obviously coming off of week 1, where they posted the lowest scoring total and lost. Padastan had a promising week 1, and they built on that in this one. They won the game 105 to 102. I believe on the Monday night game as well. So your thoughts about this game?
Yeah, very, very good game. Yeah, I mean, looking at the performances, only Alan really let them down. Everyone else at least turned up on the day. And T.Y. Hilton obviously would have been a bit of a stab for Phil if he hadn't played. So it's good that he can't blame it on that. But yeah, really good turnout for both of them, I think.
Yeah.
So they should both be pretty happy.
Absolutely, and this is 2 straight weeks in a row now. Padastan's put up in or about 100 points, looking like a very consistent team. I know they got a big boost from their quarterback, Ben Roethlisberger, 36 points.
Yeah.
But you know, we see these types of teams all the time. You know, some players will have bad weeks, some weeks, and then some will have good, and it all kind of balances out to about 100 points every week. On the other side of the board, the Tugfards, they're still not looking strong. You look down the roster, let's see, I think 5 guys, 5, is that right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, five guys, I think, didn't top 10. Carried by, the defense and kicker got a combined 32 points in this one. It was nice to see Adrian Peterson bounce back and Matt Ryan chipped in with a average QB score of 20. That's okay. But, they got to 100, but it wasn't it was a painful way to get to 100.
Yeah.
So, and now they're 0-2. While I think they look better than they did in week 1, it's still concerning.
Agreed.
And you look on the bench as well, they had 27 points from Allen Robinson, which just kills you. Like, they started Percy Harvin over him. I'm not sure I would have done that, but that's what happened, so they'll deal with it. So our next game here, the Homosexuals against Jeff Seals. Opposite ends of the spectrum going into week 2, Jeff Seals lost week 1 after having a promising week 1, and the Homosexuals had a wildly promising week 1, where their team looked absolutely formidable. But they were derailed by injuries to Tony Romo and Carlos Hyde in this one, and they eventually succumbed 93-81 to Jeff Seals. Yeah.
And that's the thing, I think, if you lose your QB early on, and so they don't really score many points, I mean, seven points is better than nothing, unlike some of the QBs. But you really do lose you're almost guaranteed to get, around 20 points for your QB. And if you're not getting that, 13-point deficit is pretty much the score difference. So he's really been hit by that.
Absolutely,
And like you say, Carlos Hyde.
Yeah, and you extrapolate over the course of the game. I think Brandon Whedon he hit Terrence Williams for a 40-yard touchdown. Tony Romo was on course for a nice day. He only needed 13 more points, which would have given a roughly average score for a quarterback of 20, and they definitely get the win, I think, in this one.
Agreed.
Carlos Hyde as well. If he'd stayed in the game, he would have chipped in a bit more yardage, you think. So yeah, unfortunate, but it happens to the best of us. I think the most promising thing for them was Larry Fitzgerald on the bench, 3 touchdowns.
Well, this is the thing. Who doesn't play Larry Fitzgerald when they have him? He sounds like a classic
he's
mistake.
not making that mistake again. Trust me, he's starting him this week.
Exactly. Don't have any sympathy for him. He should have faith in the Fitz, and frankly, deserves to do better. To be fair though, do you know who he switched out? Which wide receivers he switched out?
Brandon.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
With the loss of Drew Brees, potentially, I think that makes sense.
100%.
On the other side of the ball, Jeff Seals, kind of a Pakistan-esque team, but a bit more of a poor man's, I guess. They're going to have a few guys step up on each week. Only 3 guys really stepped up this week. Stafford, Edelman, and Amari Cooper. The rest all posting less than 10. But they weren't terrible scores. They all kind of got, 9.8, 7, 6 kind of thing. A few low ones in there, but hey, they got there, and they got the W. So our next game here, Ikenan versus Bernacestes. This was a real good game too. Ikenan took a huge lead in this one after week 1, having a tremendous score in week 1, winning their first week. Did the same in this one, putting up 118 in total. It was Bernacestes' game to chase ultimately, and they came up just short, in no small part due to a failing by Andrew Luck as well.
Yeah, and that was a really bad day for Andrew Luck. I mean, to be fair, if he'd only got 20 points, it still wouldn't have been enough. But, going into that, I thought there wasn't much chance that I'd actually hold it. Because, as well, who was it? Wasn't it Marshall who was playing?
Brandon Marshall, yeah.
And I thought, well, he's going to do pretty well. He did do pretty well. He got 16 points. Had Luck delivered at all, that would have been enough to seal the game out. So I think it was definitely unlucky. And like he's pointed out, he has the second highest points, and there's a reason. He's turned out a good couple of weeks.
Yep, absolutely. Looking down the score lines here, I mean, your team again with another 0 from one of your key players, you still put up 118. Okay, I know your kicker and defense combined for 40, and you got to think that's not going to happen very often. But, 18 from your quarterback, 13 from Gio Bernard, which is, he benefited greatly from Jeremy Hill's benching, so wouldn't count on that every week, but it was still nice to see. Demaryius Thomas pitching in a solid 11, and then obviously Antonio Brown, 28 points, just incredible.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is that also people like Martellus Bennett really didn't do massively well.
Yeah, you had some bad games there too. Absolutely.
So, but the real killer for this one, obviously for me, is that I switched out Cunningham for Matt Jones.
Yeah.
And so it's a sort of emotional loss.
You also had Cam Newton on the bench as well, who did a little better than Rivers, but hey, you got the W, it doesn't matter. Looking at bare necessities, they had a few good performances, as you said. Brandon Marshall and Emmanuel Sanders combining for 36, Gronk pitching in 17. Kicker also got 15, but outside of that, it was solid. I mean, Chris Johnson 7. The other 2 starting running backs, 8.3 and 6. Luck was the real Achilles heel this week, but he's facing easier matchups for at least the next 2 weeks. So look for
and to be fair, the Seahawks underperformed as well, partly because they're against Green.
Yeah,
they've put in 5 points. That is below average. I'd say average is about 10.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
very strong team. Our next game here, the Dream Team against Forge Flyers. Not as interesting as the other games we've just seen, but noteworthy nonetheless. So the Dream Team coming into this one obviously lost week 1, struggling a little bit. And Forge Flyers also putting up a bit of a miserable scoreline in week 1. Sadly, that continued for them, only getting 66, but the Dream Team recovered a bit, putting up nearly 199.5. Your take on this game?
Yeah, I mean, it's as much Chris's loss as it is Viv's victory. I mean, Viv turned in 100 points, so you can't really fault him. But 66 is just not. It just spells disaster, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, in Tannehill's put in 28 of those points. It's it's a one-man team almost. But obviously Johnson as well put in 14. But you've got 0 for Matthews. 0.4 for Blount, 2.9 for Anderson, 1.1 for Jimmy Graham. I mean, it's tough. It's really, really tough.
Yeah, it's tough looking at the lineup. As you said, Ryan Tannehill had a nice game, 28. But Blount, I think he's in store for better days. Buffalo, I think everyone in their nan could have predicted that the Patriots weren't going to ground the ball against Buffalo's front 7. So
Yeah.
you can kind of expect that one. CJ Anderson, it's a tough KC defense, but this is 2 weeks in a row now he's struggled, and Ronnie Hillman's starting to get more carries. You have to start wondering if he'll ever live up to where he was drafted. Calvin Johnson, as advertised, you'd expect games like this. John Brown, I think, probably coming down to more his level. He got the touchdown in week 1, but in the Arizona offense, that's going to be hit and miss.
Yeah.
Jimmy Graham, they've been slow to get him going the first 2 weeks. Well, I think they'll give, what's the phrase, squeaky wheel gets the grease. He'll get work, but, everyone's fears about his targets dropping, moving into a new offense, they were correct, but it's not for a lack of trying. He's been blocking on about the same percentage of plays as he was with the Saints. They're just not giving him the ball. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes. As you say, Ryan Matthews, and it's fair to say some of us would have expected this. He is a very touchdown-dependent flex at best, and he didn't get a touchdown, so it's not a surprise he didn't do anything. Another rough week, and while I think this team can definitely bounce back, I think you said rightly it's not looking pretty. But on the other side of the ball, the dream team, take away Drew Brees, who I think arguably he's got an upgrade with Carson Palmer now. Justin Forsett, McCoy combined for nice days. Pierre Garçon had a nice day. Adams didn't do great, but I think he was a little hampered by the injury. I think he'll get going. Olsen recovered nicely. D'Angelo Williams, 27 points. Obviously, that's not happening again now that Le'Veon Bell's back.
No.
And 15 points from the kicker. So, he's got Latavius Murray in the wings who fills in for Williams. So I think it's not the same dream team that we've seen in previous years where it's boom or bust. It's squarely in the consistent middle pack teams this time, I think. But they can make it work, and they're 1-1. So.
Do you know if he's dropped Bridgewater?
No, he's still got Bridgewater too.
So he's now got 3 QBs.
Currently, yes,
With 1 on reserves, obviously. Actually, isn't it only 2 reserve spots?
But Breeze can't go on reserve because he's not going to be placed on IR return or anything like that.
Right.
So
Sure.
It's just carrying 3 quarterbacks. So our next game here, we'll go to Andy Dalton Red Zone versus Tom's Tyrants. Tom's Tyrants, both these teams were 1-0 entering the week. Obviously, only one could leave with the W. Tom's Tyrants putting up an incredible 130 points in week 1. And Andy Dalton Red Zone putting up a, solid but unspectacular 85. They turned that around here. 101 points, good week for them. And very much crashing down to earth week for Tom's Tyrants with only 80.
Yeah, definitely. And to be fair, part of that's the weakness in the running back core, which is same for me. He's done the wide receiver strat, and to be fair, his wide receivers have delivered. He's got whatever that is, like 25, 26 points from them, but it's only 15 points from your running backs, and that does hurt. And obviously, Bradford putting in 10 points this week is again very below average. Of what you expect for a QB. So, it's obviously been a bit of a tough week, but and Abdullah obviously didn't put many points up, but I still believe that he's got a fairly solid team. It would just come down to how well Julio Jones, Landry, Abdullah really turn it around.
Absolutely. And staying on Tom's Tyrants, the receivers, he took a hit when he lost Des Bryant, but Jarvis Landry's picked up the slack nicely. Julio Jones is having a great season so far. Bradford is the problem with this team. 10 points from your quarterback, it just kills you. And the problem is right now, Carson Palmer's gone off the waiver. There's not a lot of options out there, so he's almost inclined to stick with them. You got to think. This is also the problem with Amir Abdullah. The Lions and the Eagles' offenses just haven't seemed to have got going really.
Yeah.
You got to think that's going to change, but until it does, it's going to hamper the upside of this team. Like you said, I agree. It's definitely still a strong team. And you look on the bench, they've got Danny Woodhead, Tevin Coleman whenever he comes back from injury. I think it's still a good team, but they really need some players, offenses, to get going for them to really hit their potential. On the other side, ADRZ, coming into the season, we thought this was going to be a solid group, and through 2 weeks, that's exactly what it is. They're 2-0. Russell Wilson putting in a nice game, 26. Jamal Charles getting a nice 14-point score, which could have been better. He had 2 fumbles in that game. Frank Gore, he's been a slow starter, but again, I'd put that up more to the Indy offense really not getting going, mainly because they're playing those 2 tough defenses in the first 2 weeks. So look for him to get going. AJ Green and Steve Smith, I think you can probably expect around about 25 points between the two on a weekly basis. I think that's probably fair. Jason Witten, they're going to be without him, but hopefully they'll have Delaney Walker back. So, you know, they've got reliable tight ends. Torrey Smith is the one they're not going to be able to count on 20 points. That's not happening every week.
Yeah, 100% agree.
Yeah, and they haven't got really any options on the bench until Todd Gurley comes back, starts a game rather than comes back. But, you know, I think it's a solid bunch that could, and they've got a bit of a soft division. They could definitely surprise this season.
Yeah, definitely.
Our last game,
one of the things, sorry.
Yep. No.
One thing is, you know, when you look down his roster, you would expect him to have got more than 100 points this week because there have been a ton of solid performances.
Yeah.
And really, it's only the kicker and defense that have really underperformed.
Yeah.
If he has an average week, but then actually gets these kind of performances out of his wide receivers and running back, frankly, he's going to be fine. He's probably, like you say, in with a good shot of winning the division because, you know, when I look at that team, I think, it's a nice team.
Absolutely. Moving to our final game here, which was billed as the game of the week. Really was not. It was a close one, but it was of the low-scoring variety. Both teams coming in with a win. Gridiron Gang coming off the great week 1 where they put up about whatever it was, 115, 120, and all the Detonators won as well. But only one, neither team really had a good week, and garbage time, as you can probably see by the drive chart here, saved it for the Detonators. They won 84-69.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it wasn't a pretty game.
No.
And I think part of that is sort of a reflection of what this week was like, in the sense that there was a lot of really random players getting all of the action.
Yeah.
You'd expect more from Murray. You'd expect a bit more from Macklin. I mean, Lacey obviously being injured, big downward pressure on yours because he only got 9 yards before he went down. Like there's so many things that I see in this game where it's like, this should have been a better game. This wasn't a better game because it was just a mess. Yeah,
you're definitely right. And, it's kind of what I said about Tom's Tyrants team. But Detonators, they've got DeMarco Murray and Jordan Matthews. That Eagles offense just not really getting going right now, and that showed. Jordan Matthews got a late garbage time touchdown when the game was completely in doubt, which ultimately helped into the victory. Kind of the same with Terrence Williams. The Cowboys weren't really getting anything going either. Then he got a late touchdown. But looking elsewhere, like Jeremy Hill, he had those 2 fumbles and got benched. That's not happening on a regular week. Peyton Manning had a nice rebound week. While I don't know if he can continue that. I don't know if you saw the game or the highlights, but that was the ugliest 26-point fantasy performance I think I've ever seen, quite frankly. Jeremy Macklin, he hasn't scored a touchdown yet. I think he's going to get about 50 yards every week and maybe a touchdown here and there. It's the same thing as Tom's Tyrants. I think once some of the players get going for the Detonators, they'll be strong. Until that happens, though, they're probably going to have a fair few weeks of under 100 points. On the bench, they've got a few options. I mean, Vincent Jackson's okay. Kendall Wright, you think he'll probably have a few good games here and there. The
problem is, though, choosing when to put him in.
Yeah, exactly. You've either got to slam him every week and just enjoy the highs and lows, or as you say, get lucky. Moving to Gridiron Gang side of the ball, as you said, both my starting running backs got injured in that game, which effectively stopped any scoring from them. Golden Tate had a nice game, nice rebound from week 1. Obviously, skipped over Tom Brady, 35 points against the Buffalo defense. Great showing from him. DeAndre Hopkins, with you know, he was up against a tough Carolina defense. Still got 53 yards, got peppered with targets, so that will be probably among the lowest points, I think it's fair to say, that you'll see. Eddie Rourke, the flex, not really doing much tight end, and the defense really killed me here too. I mean, Ravens coming off of a great week 1 where they got about 20 points versus Denver, and then they put up 3 versus Oakland. You expect
exactly.
On a weekly basis, as you said about who was it, ADRZ, you know, their defense is going to get more than that.
Yeah, you'd expect around 10 for the defense.
Yeah.
I mean, the problem you may have is a lack of bench power.
Yeah, my bench, I think more than anything, really did take a hit this week. I think Shane Vereen's a good fill-in option, but you know, unless he gets a touchdown, 9.5, which is what he got, is probably the max he's going to get.
Yeah.
Deshaun Jackson, when he gets back, that's going to be a boost for my team, no doubt. Joique Bell, again, he's kind of suffering from Detroit really being inept on offense so far. And Charles Johnson as well, he hasn't got going yet for the Vikings offense either. So not a lot of depth on my team right now, but hopefully in future weeks that can change.
Yeah.
Going to the power rankings now, I'll run off the teams and their positions quickly, and I'll let you speak about it for a bit. So, right at the top here, we have Ignan at number 1, followed by the Romosexuals at number 2, the Detonators at 3, Palestine at 4, ADRZ at 5, Ben Necessities at 6, Tom's Tyrants at 7, Jeff Seals at 8, the Dream Team at 9, Tug Clouds at 10, Gridiron Gang falling all the way to 11, and Fortifiers at 12.
Well, this is the first time, I think, ever that I am number 1 in the power rankings, and probably the first time ever that I'm. This is probably a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity by Shares and Ben. But when that comes crashing down, I think it's fairly fair. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think ADRZ might even be slightly higher, just because I think if someone's going to be in the playoffs, almost, like if there's a high chance they're going to be in the playoffs, somewhere around maybe 4, maybe that's where I put him, but not a huge change, I suppose. Mm-hmm. Obviously, poor Chris was very concerned about all of that, and I might even put the top cards below you because he's just having a really, really bad time, and I think, well, I suppose it's about future prospects as well, and your future prospects don't look that bright, so we have to take that into account.
No. I would say my starting lineup is good. What you want about?
Ish. And yeah, it's funny actually. I've got the Dream Team next week. I don't know whether he's not updated his thing, but they're projecting like 60 points. I'm presuming he hasn't changed his team around yet, because that's
quite possibly.
That'd be pretty worrying, but yeah.
Yeah.
So it's fairly fair. There's not much I disagree with.
Yeah, great. So if you want to go read that yourself, you can on the league homepage or on the league blog. Also, if you haven't seen, there's a new league poll up on the fantasy site, so you can go check that out. I believe it is what current division leader is most likely to win their division, obviously come the end of the season. So the Detonators, ADRZ and Ignan, you can go vote on that on the league page. But now we will get to the last segment of the show, the Week 3 previews, and we'll start off which I guess is probably the game of the week here, a former Corona Bowl, a little bit of a rivalry as well. I think it's Gridiron Gang against Tom's Tyrants. So both of these teams, it's actually a great time for these teams to be facing each other because they're both 1-1. They both had great first weeks. Very disappointing second weeks. They've both suffered injuries. They've both had players that have not performed. They're almost mirroring each other with how their season's going, quite frankly. And they meet here in Week 3. Projections in this one have Gridiron Gang currently winning 112 to 101. Lineup changes. Shane Vereen comes into the starting lineup for Eddie Royal. Jordan Reed picked up off the waiver today, starting at tight end. Eddie Lacy currently in the flex. See if he doesn't play, that'll probably be James Starks. On Tom's Tyrants' side of the ball, nothing has changed as of yet.
Yeah, I think that this will be a really interesting game because both of you are either going to bounce or one of you is going to bounce, and that's going to be a very crushing victory.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it would surprise anyone if this turned into a barnstormer, a lopsided victory, or a low defensive game.
Yeah.
It could be anything, and that's what that's what adds to it, definitely.
Yeah.
Moving on to the next game, Ikenan versus the Dream Team. Storylines in this one: Ikenan 2-0 now, undefeated, top of the power rankings, top of the league, no less. Looking really strong. Already very confident that Aaron Foster is going to play. He's moved into the starting lineup for Benny Cunningham. Cam Newton swaps with Philip Rivers. What else? That looks like it. On the Dream Team side of the ball, they're actually projected to win 113 to 107 right now. Carson Palmer comes in for the injured Drew Brees. And other than that, Latavius Murray swapping in DeAndre Williams. Obviously, now that Williams is going to take that back seat. Thoughts on this game?
Yeah, it's interesting. The projections don't take into account Aaron Foster getting any points. So obviously, if he's not playing, I won't be playing him.
Hang on a minute. This is weird now, because if you look at it, it's in the top bar. It's got the projections as 103 to 81, but then you scroll down and it says it's 113 to 107.
Yeah, see, that's what I originally read, and that's why I thought it was lower than it was.
But obviously, it will spring up if Foster plays.
Yeah, if not, obviously, I've now got the option of putting in Matt Jones. Presumably he won't do 25 points or something next week, sure. But even to get 10 points out of him consistently might be better than Gio Bernard in the long run. So that's good. But then, on the Dream Team side, with Drew Brees gone, I mean, Palmer's good, but I don't know. I think it's going to be a pretty tough one for him. But who knows?
Sure. We skipped over this with mine, so we'll do it with yours quickly, and then go back to mine. So, who are you taking to win this game?
I'm taking me. I think if Aaron Foster is playing, and they don't use him as a fucking decoy, which they did with Evans, because I swear if they do. But Evans is back, hopefully this time, actually going to play properly. I think I should do fairly well. So I think I'll outscore him.
Yeah, and I think I'll take you here as well. You've got some pretty juicy matchups. Just looking at Newton against New Orleans and Foster if he plays against Tampa. Those are two pretty good matchups. On the other side of the ball, Palmer's got San Francisco, Forset's got Cincinnati, McCoy's got Miami. I mean, it's just not some really ugly matchups there. And ultimately, I think your team is better at this point in the season. So yeah, I'm going to take your team too. Right, flipping back quickly, Gridiron Gang, Thomas Torrance, who are you taking in that game?
I think Tom Torrance is going to win 120 to 64.
Thanks. Well, I'm going to defy that and say that my team will win. Not with that scoreline. I don't know what the scoreline would be, but I like my team still. I think that it had a lot of holes last week, but I think it can bounce back. And Tom Torrance, I agree. I think their team can bounce back too, but they've got some really tough matchups themselves. Bradford against the Jets, Martin against Houston, Landry against Buffalo, Jones against Dallas. It's not the easiest matchup either. Dallas have actually been shutting down receivers apart from garbage time, of course. Bueller against Denver, Eifel against... he's got some hard matchups. And
he definitely does.
Well, I've got a couple as well. Miller against Buffalo and Tate against Denver. I think I'll say
and the Chiefs, maybe. if Lacey comes back. Obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on to our next game here, ADRZ against the Detonators. This is it's projected to be a high-scoring close one here. 130 to 121 in favour of ADRZ. On ADRZ's side of the ball, they've not made any changes yet. Obviously, they're 2-0, leading their division currently after 2 good weeks. Detonators also 2-0, so whoever leaves this game is obviously going to go as a winner, is going to be 3-0, so that's quite interesting. Any lineup changes for the Detonators as of yet? No, nothing by the looks of it. Your takes on this game?
I think it'll be a really interesting one. I do think it will shape up to be quite a high-scoring match. I'm quite in favour of Andy Dalton Red Zone at this point, so I'd probably give them the win. But I think the Budetonists have got some really strong potential here. Williams, Murray, Hill, Macklin, I think. Oh, and Manning as well. I mean, it depends how Manning does, obviously. But as long as everyone puts in a solid performance, that would probably be enough to put up over 100 points. And that's formidable because, a lot of weeks, if it's a bit sketchy, that could be enough.
Absolutely. I think I'll take ADRZ here as well. Right now, I think they're just kind of the stronger, more consistent team, as we both said earlier. But I have a few of those players where their offenses need to get going before we can fully trust them. I'd lump Denver in with that. I'm still not convinced. Detroit's a tough matchup. I'm still not sold on Peyton Manning. He might prove me wrong, but I'd like to see it 2 weeks in a row before I'm willing to change my tune on that. Murray and Hill, 2 tough matchups. Murray still hasn't got going properly. Same with Matthews against the Jets. On the other side of the ball, I just think ADRZ has a stronger team, to be honest. So I'm going to go with them. Next game here, Forge Flies against Bare Necessities. Storylines coming into this one. Both teams 0-2. So someone will live this game 0-3. I can't remember the stats, but 0-2. We've seen a few teams go 0-2 and make the playoffs. I'm not sure how many teams have gone 0-3 and made the playoffs, but it's a very low number, I can tell you that much.
Yeah.
Projections in this one actually have Forge Flies winning right now, 106 to 104, but it's a close one. Lineup changes in this one on Forge Flies side of the ball, currently unchanged. On Bare Necessities side of the ball, Dion Lewis is coming to the starting lineup. He's starting in the flex for Chris Johnson.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously we're continuing to kick Chris a little bit while he's down, but I am concerned about his team, and I'm concerned that he won't put up 106 points in this week. I could be wrong, but I think that Bare Necessity's got a lot more consistency, and I think, providing he puts in performance like he did this week, I think that'll be adequate to take it, because people like Gronk, Brandon Marshall, Stewart. I mean, I just think, and as long as luck doesn't obviously not luck out, it'll be. I think he'll put in a good performance. So that's definitely my view on this game.
Yeah, and I'd probably take Bare Necessities here too. Like you said, they've gone over 100 points 2 weeks in a row. I haven't got the win yet, but I'd say they're a pretty safe bet to do it again. Luck's got a much easier matchup against Tennessee. Jonathan Stewart's playing New Orleans. You think they're going to take the lead and just run the ball all day. Yeldon at New England. New England's run defense isn't great, so I guess you could see him doing okay. Sanders against Detroit, it's a bit of a tough matchup, but he's been an absolute target hog. So if there's anyone in Denver right now who's playing well, it's him. Obviously as well as Demaryius Thomas. Brandon Marshall also having a good season so far, playing a Philly team that's really in flux. Obviously he's got Gronk. Lewis, I don't know. I don't like Lewis for this game. I think this game actually bodes much better for Forge Flyers because they're starting LeGarrette Blount. I think they'll run the ball a lot more on Jacksonville than they have been in the last 2 weeks. But going back to Bears,
I mean, he did do very, very well in the previous week, and I think you would continue some of that. I think it will take away from both. So the combined points, I think they might end up with fairly equal carries, but it's not going to help either of them because they're going to offset.
Yeah, absolutely. Seahawks against Chicago, who will probably be starting Jimmy Clausen, is also very, very tasty. Looking on the other side of the ball, Tannehill against Buffalo. Stifled luck in week 1. He's not going to do what Tom Brady did. Only the Patriots can kind of game plan and do what they did against the Bills. I don't think Tannehill's good enough to do that. Blunt, I think, he'll definitely have a better game. Anderson, we've spoken about him playing Detroit. It's not good on paper. Calvin Johnson against Denver as well, also not good on paper. He's playing Aqib Talib. John Brown against Sam Fran, who they got really chewed up last week, but I think they'll do better in this one. You got to think they get Jimmy Graham going, so I think his projection is probably fair for this one against the fairly soft Chicago defense.
Yeah.
But Ryan Matthews, whatever matchup he has, he's not a good bet to have a nice day anyway, and he's playing the Jets in this one. So, yeah, I'm definitely taking Ben Assisties as well. And my heart goes out to Ford Flyers. I hope they get something going, but I just can't see it happening in this one. Going on to our next game here, the Tugfards against Jeff Seals. Heavy favourites for Jeff Seals in this one. They're projected to win 118 to 94. Lineup changes in this one on the Tugfards. They've got Heath Miller in for Vernon Davis. I don't know about that. He benefited from Le'Veon Bell not being there, so we'll see. Other than that, I don't think they've changed anything other than a new kicker, Robbie Gould. Jeff Seals, they're probably unchanged right now. Yep, they are. Your thoughts on this game?
I mean, it's Jeff Seals, so you've always got to be a little bit cautious about how optimistic you are. But I mean, they've done well. You've got to get onto him to switch back Aaron Rodgers in. He said to me the other day, Beth keeps texting me to tell me to do things, and I don't like it. And it's like, yeah, I bet. But if you don't, he won't.
Exactly.
But yeah, no, I think if he does that, I don't think the Tugfards are looking particularly strong. I think the core of Jeff Seals' team is quite strong. I took Gordon Sankey the year for a bit there, but yeah, I think overall, unless Adrian Peterson goes for like 27 points or something, you're probably not going to see an amazing turnout for them, and I think that's probably they just don't have enough strength. So I'm definitely giving it to Jeff Seals on this one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's a bit of a tougher one to call. I could see the Tugfards having an okay week. Matt Ryan against Dallas is pretty good. Adrian Peterson and Mark Ingram, two good running backs. You know, if we see a healthy Hilton, he could have a nice game. And I imagine the Cowboys are going to try and run the ball a lot more, so Randall could have a nice game. But ultimately, we've seen Jeff Seals have 2 good weeks on the trot now. As you say, if they swap in some of their guys on the bench, they could put up a very nice week on any given week. They've got Le'Veon Bell back, who will obviously be coming into the starting lineup as well. Yeah. So I'd definitely take Jeff Seals in this one too.
Agreed.
Our final game here, the Homosexuals against Pakistan. Storylines in this one, both teams 1-1. Homosexuals lost last week, Pakistan won. Projections in this one have Pakistan winning 100. Oh, sorry, no, they have Homosexuals winning 125 to 112. Lineup changes, Joe Flacco slots in for the injured Tony Romo at quarterback. Harry Fitzgerald comes in as wide receiver for Brandon Cooks. Other than that, I think they're unchanged. Pakistan's side of the ball, they look unchanged as well. So, your thoughts on this game?
I'm starting to really like the Homosexual side, mainly because they have Odell Beckham and Fitzgerald and Forte. I mean, Flacco's a little bit weak, but Kelsey's good as well. The Bills' defense is good. I mean, there's a lot I like there. Pakistan, though, also has got a fairly solid team, so I expect a high-scoring one on this one, actually. Patriots at Jacksonville should be fairly easy to shut them down, so that'll be a nice boost. Obviously, Big Ben, I've always found him to be a little bit inconsistent, but you know, if he puts in a good showing, you know, it could be similar to this week, maybe 5 points less or something. So I think it's a hard one to call, but because I like their core, I think I'd probably give the Homosexuals the victory on this one.
Yeah, this is a tough one for me to call because while I agree, name power alone, the Homosexuals, Jeff definitely has a great team. Forte, Hyde, Fitzgerald, Beckham, Kelsey as well, I'd lump in there. It's very good, but I think every one of those players doesn't actually have a very good matchup. I mean, start off at quarterback, Joe Flacco playing Cincinnati. Joe Flacco's a risky bet. regardless of who he's playing, just because he's kind of the Ben Roethlisberger ilk type player. He's quite consistent. Tough matchup against Cincy. Forte's playing Seattle, Hyde's against Arizona, both two good run defenses. Fitzgerald's playing San Fran. I think that's an okay one, but Beckham's playing Washington, who actually surprisingly have looked pretty good on defense so far. On the other side of the ball, Roethlisberger's playing St. Louis, which isn't a good matchup either, but, you've got Lynch and Morris against Chicago and Giants, which is just tasty.
Yeah.
Cubs against Kansas, and we saw Emmanuel Sanders really dumped all over them last week. And he's got Crowell against Oakland as well for whatever that's worth. So I think I'm actually going to go with Pakistan here. And they've also got the Pats against Jacksonville, which is kind of nice as well.
Yeah.
So I think it might be a tight one, but I think I'll go with Pakistan here.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the Week 2 matchups, all neatly tied up in a bow. So make sure to check your teams. Obviously, a lot of injuries this week. A lot of things to keep an eye on. We'll just take a quick look at the overall standings. So Division 1, Southampton Bidetana is currently leading 2-0. Every division has got a 2-0 leader, 1-1, 2 teams in the middle, and then an 0-2 team at the bottom, which I find quite funny. Tom's Tyrants and Dream Team are 1-1. Ben Necessities rounding down that division. Portsmouth ADRZ leading that 2-0. Pakistan and Jeff Seals both 1-1. Forge Flyers 0-2. Winchester Iknan is 2-0 leading that. Roman Sexuals 1-1 as our Gridiron Gang, and the Tuck Farts 0-2 there. So it's funny. It's really funny how each division is exactly the same.
Yeah, symmetry.
Right, anyway, that's everything here. So I don't know if you saw the message, but if you're around this Sunday, you're more than welcome to come watch the games, even though I won't be here. My dad said he didn't mind. So that's to anyone in the league that wants to watch. Thanks for joining me again, Coach Sherwood.
That's okay. Love to be here.
Good. And we'll be back with you next Wednesday for the Week 3 recap, hopefully with less injuries. So thanks for joining us. Goodbye.
Bye.